The first 2 weeks of January have been a really interesting time in our garden. I know not everything went perfectly, but there has been a lot of progress, and honestly, that's what makes gardening so satisfying. We have had some really good harvests. I also suffered a few losses due to extreme heat, but I've also started a couple of new growing experiments that I'm quite excited about. So, please come along with me as I take you through what's been happening in our garden over the first 2 weeks of January. Namaskaram, I'm Srideep and welcome back to Srideep's January garden story. Now, let me first start with the harvest because this fortnight has been incredibly rewarding, especially with Tindora. If you remember last episode, I showed you that our Tindora plant, which is also called ivy gourd, produced 5 fruit. Guess what? In the last 2 weeks, Tindora has completely changed its harvest. We harvested Tindora 3 times in just 2 weeks. One day we picked 889 grams. Another time I picked 410 grams. And then 477 grams. That's a total of 1,776 grams of Tindora. And what makes this even more exciting is that it's all coming from just one plant. Going from an occasional handful harvest to a continuous and reliable supply has been incredibly satisfying. And this is exactly why I love growing my own food. Continuously picked sorrel and Malabar spinach, they both are doing incredibly well and giving us regular pickings now. The tomatoes are also slowly starting to come through. If you remember, I showed you all those green cherry tomatoes and Roma tomatoes in the last episode. They have finally started to ripen. I harvested cherry tomatoes in 2 small batches with a total of around 100 grams between the 2 harvests. The Roma tomatoes also gave us 2 harvests, 42 grams one time and 120 grams another. I know the numbers are not as big, but the plants look very healthy and promising, and I'm hopeful that the yields will improve as the season progresses. We've also harvested our first round of patio snack cucumbers. We have picked 5 cucumbers and they weighed around 700 grams together. It's always exciting to harvest cucumbers for the first time. I just feel cucumbers are one of those plants that just grow so quickly once they get going. Now, from the beans end, I harvested our first small batch of Mendoza dwarf beans, weighing about 27 grams. I know, not a big harvest yet, but it's always encouraging to see the first produce coming in. Now, I was recently given a leafy green called Ponnagantikura. It is widely used in South Indian cuisine. Now, in English, it is also known as water amaranth, Cecile joyweed, or dwarf copper leaf. Now, my mother-in-law has always been asking me to grow this particular greeny leaf since I started gardening. I could actually never find it, and one of our gardening club members had some and she brought it in just for me to taste. And then I noticed that some of the harvest that she brought in had roots growing through. So I called up my mother-in-law and I've sent her some photos and I said, "Is this the green that you were asking me to grow?" And then she told me, yes, it is the correct one. So I asked her what is the best way to grow. So she told me that it grows very similar to mint. It grows from the nodes. Because the batch I received already had roots to some of the nodes, I laid some of the stems across the soil and planted them that way. What I also did is I just put the stems directly into the soil as well. Now, this is my first time growing this leafy green, so I'm really curious to see how it performs. I hope it takes off nicely. I will keep you all posted. Now, this leafy green is rich in iron, calcium, beta carotene, and vitamins A and C. So I can't wait to share the tips with you guys. Now, I also mentioned last week that I sowed a lot of green amaranth seeds, and none of those seeds germinated. This is the first time when amaranth did not germinate for me, because it is so popular and it almost grows like a weed. The just with the wind, the seeds just fly all across and I get so many plants, and this is the first year I've not gotten even a single plant. So this time I thought I'll change my approach. Now these seeds are extremely tiny, as I'm showing you here. So instead of sowing them directly, I decided to mix these seeds into my seed raising mix and then sowed the mixture evenly into the new garden bed that we have in our backyard. Now, if you'd like to know how I prepare my seed raising mix, I will link that video above, so please feel free to check it out. I'm hoping that this method will help with better seed distribution. It will improve germination. So please make sure you follow along. I will keep sharing updates as things progress. Now, last week was particularly very tough because we've had extreme heat. The temperatures in Adelaide went to more than 42 degrees. And the garden definitely felt it. Although I had shade cloth all across, a lot of our Roma tomato plants develop blossom end rot. Now, for anyone that doesn't know blossom end rot, it's usually these brown patches that you see under the tomato. The tomato slowly starts to rot from the bottom. It can happen if there is calcium deficiency and also due to heat stress. It is very common problem in our garden during summer, so I know that it is due to heat stress. I did remove all of those affected Roma tomatoes and bin them in. You can see that's quite a few, almost half a kilo. They go in the bin, but that's just how gardening works. Now, despite giving protection, I lost all my Lebanese cucumber seedlings and borlotti bean seedlings in the backyard. Now, at this point, I'm actually trying to decide if I should re-sow cucumber seedlings again or just let it be for this season. I can say that some plants handled the heat really well, while others didn't. And that's just part of gardening, isn't it? And we did take a little break from the garden and went cherry picking. Here in Australia, we're really lucky to have local farms where we can hand pick our own cherries. Since cherries are in season in Adelaide, we decided to visit one of our friends' farms. We picked around 4.5 kilos of cherries. We enjoyed about 2 kilos fresh, and I froze 2.5 kilos. Now, in the farm, the kids actually had this cherry dessert. I tasted it too, and it tasted amazing. My kids really loved it. So I asked them for the recipe, and that's why I froze some of those cherries. I'm going to try and recreate this dessert. If I'm successful and if it comes out well, I'll be sure to share the recipe. I always love supporting our local farms as much as I love enjoying seasonal produce. I think it's just so important that we support our local businesses. So that's how our garden has been over the first 2 weeks of January. Great harvest, some losses, lots of learning, and plenty of hope moving forward. Now, if you have enjoyed coming along with me in our garden this week, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with friends and family who enjoy gardening. And please let me know in the comments, have you had heat damage in your garden this summer? And help me decide, should I re-sow cucumbers now or just nothing more for this season? Thank you very much for watching and for coming along our gardening journey this week. I will see you all in the next episode. Until then, please keep growing what matters.